Hey everyone, welcome to the Canine Culture Podcast, where we talk about everything dog. Q&As with veterinarian professionals, rescue operators, everyday topics. We cover everything dog on this podcast. So make sure you subscribe to the Canine Culture Podcast on your favorite podcast platform, and make sure you're following us on social media on both Instagram and Facebook. Thanks again for listening. Now here's that next episode. Hey everyone, welcome to the Canine Culture Podcast. This is your host, Brittany, and today we have a very special guest. Her name is Jen, and you are about to learn about how she has the most fun job with dogs, probably a job that we would all want. So welcome to the show, Jen.
Hi, great to be here on actually my 2-year anniversary of launching the business that we're going to talk about today. So happy to be here with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Tell everyone about your business and the name of it, and then tell us how you got it started, because we talked a little bit off air that there's a really fun and exciting story behind how you started this.
Yeah, so my name is Jen Hillenga, and I live in New York City. I moved here from the Midwest 8.5 years ago because I used to be a portrait photographer in the Midwest, and I did regular family portrait, children, high school seniors, weddings, all of that fun stuff. And I had another internet company, which I sold to a company in New York, and they kind of bought me with the company. And so I came here to be creative director of their entire corporate entity. And I loved it until I didn't. and got into the corporate, thing, the scene, the stress, all of it. And as a woman in one of the only management positions for a woman in that company, it was a lot. And then COVID hit, and I, as an extroverted introvert, they told me I got to go home, and I got to work from home in my apartment with my dogs. And I was like, I was made for this. I'm never going back to the office. So in COVID, I decided to leave that job. They decided also that I was going to be leaving that job. So I launched a dog photography business, actually February 20th of 2021. And I only photograph dogs and their humans. It's all I do now. I love it. I'm super excited about it. The name of the company is called The Ways of the Dog. And it's called that because I started with a mission statement of what I wanted to do. I wanted to go back into photography and be a creative rather than directing the creative again. But I didn't want to do it the way I had done it before with portraits. The older I get, the more I like dogs and the less I like people. So I only want people with dog people. I don't want people with normal people. Dog people are my people. So I came up with this mission statement, and it was basically how life would be better if we all followed the ways of the dog, about living in the moment, about connecting to our pack, about not starting any drama, but also not taking any shit. And just like coming at life, like from the ways of the dog. And so I named the company The Ways of the Dog, and have been photographing just dogs and their humans for the last 2 years.
That's amazing. We talked, like I said, before we got on here about how you kind of left the corporate world. And I think it's interesting that COVID opened our eyes to so much. And I think for those of us who are creative, we are looking to get back into that creative space. Like, we want to do what we truly love. I think we've learned life is too short, and our focus is on happiness.
Exactly. I feel like when I left photography the first time and came into creative director corporate world, I left because I had burned out, because, being the sole proprietor of a business itself is a lot of energy. And when you're working with clients and people want something from you all the time, and you're responsible for employees and all of that, that is a lot. It's a lot on your shoulders. So I kind of wanted something that was just 9 to 5, leave it there. But then you get into that whole corporate mentality, and you're not necessarily appreciated for what you do. There's not a lot of boundaries. And it's not, honestly, it's not worth the money when you're a creative. Like if you can figure out how to do art and make a living, especially in New York, like I feel like you've won. If you can come back to
Absolutely.
do it yourself and like if you're an adult human that makes art for a living in any way, I feel like you've won at life. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So, and you said you're based out of New York. So are you shooting primarily New York City, Brooklyn, Queens, the Bronx, Staten Island?
Yes. So I'm based in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. But I also weirdly drive in New York City. So I do sessions all over the five boroughs. Mostly, I would say Manhattan and Brooklyn, Williamsburg, Dumbo, Park Slope are my big Brooklyn areas. But a ton in the city. And then often also do work in other places. So I have, from my past photographer life, I have a lot of friends all over the world. I used to do a lot of education in photography for Professional Photographers of America and WPPI, which is Wedding and Portrait Photography International. So I know people kind of all over the country, and I've had photographers who don't do pets host me in their studios to come and offer pet photography to their clients. I have clients in the Midwest because that's where I had my other portrait business for years. So I do a couple trips back to Minneapolis every year. I've photographed in Kentucky for pets, South Carolina, Florida, Minneapolis, Iowa, and Florida so far.
That's awesome. So,
Yeah.
so photographers could book you out then, so they could always be like, "Hey, I don't do pet photography, but you do. Come down for this day of sessions."
Yeah. So usually what I do, it's usually a photographer friend of mine. Sorry, my dogs are making noise in the background. Uh, but so they usually will put something out to their clients and say, for a limited time only, we're offering, pet photography for this amount of time. And I do require that there's at least 5 sessions that are booked, in order to make the trip. But yeah,
Right.
it's fun. And it's great because it's fun for other photographers to be able to offer something, that they might not be good at. They're welcome to learn as I come. And then also offer their clients something that they don't always offer. And of course, we share the profits from
Mhm.
that time. Yeah.
Right. So I was looking at the Instagram for the waves of the dog, and I noticed over the weekend, it looked like you quite literally photographed like 100 dogs. So tell me, like, was that a little bit of a different session? Was it a traditional, like, how do you normally do these shoots? And was what I'm seeing and thinking about like a one-off?
Yeah, no, it's not a one-off. So one of the ways that I've built my business in the last 2 years is doing a lot of work with rescue, offering my services to rescues, and doing these kind of photo booth pop-ups for rescue. A lot of times it's fundraising for rescue. They'll have me at their like adoption events, or they'll have me at like their fundraising galas, and I bring a background and the whole thing, and I photograph all of the attendees. And usually it's some sort of fee, anywhere from 25 to 75, depending on what we're doing. And all of that money goes toward rescue. What I get out of it is I get to help rescue, which is very close to my heart. And I would say probably 70% of my clientele actually come to me because they've experienced me doing one of those little photo booth pop-ups scenario. I've done it for some of the New York City parks in order to raise money for the dog runs. It's just that whole being involved in dog world, dog culture, dog community in New York is really how I've gotten my name out there for my regular clients. So this past weekend was actually a Boston Terrier meetup in Washington Square Park, where there were over 100 Boston Terriers. I
Oh, God.
photographed about 55 of them in about 2.5 hours. I planted myself just outside of the park, and then I photographed people just lined up. They sign in. And I photograph the dog individually and then the people with their dog, which is a huge part of what I do. And I just set up by a little bench. We still have green in the city because we haven't gotten any snow. So there's this green bush behind it. And just very, very quickly go through and photograph all these dogs and their people. And I have a lot of tricks to make sure that that happens successfully in a short amount of time. But I also get all of their email addresses. Now, I have not yet pulled the trigger on ever sending an email because I don't like to spam. I don't like to get spam. I don't like to put it out there. But basically, what I want is make sure that I have email addresses if I would ever need it, if my business would start to slow down, if for some reason my Instagram got hacked and that no longer existed, I would be able to send out an email and say, hey, I'm starting a new Instagram. I got hacked, whatever, follow me there. I would be able to send out an email perhaps in the future of like a newsletter, something to educate, something to help the community. So I've gathered in just 2 years about 600 email addresses, which I've never used, but that's part of the purpose of why I'm doing it. And it really is just networking. It's introducing myself and my abilities to dog parents all over New York City. And then after the event, I share a gallery. They can find their own images. They can download. They can purchase prints if they'd like. The digital images are free, but they're welcome to purchase images, and many will. But then it also, every single person that I photographed who's there will post it on Instagram, will tag me in it, will give me a glowing, recommendation. And everybody who follows them on Instagram will see this image and it'll be better than the rest of the images on Instagram, hopefully. And then it just brings awareness of my brand to dog parents all over New York. So it's great.
Yeah, that's really smart. And for anyone listening, people I don't think know how dog friendly New York is. Everyone has a dog, everyone. And those pop-ups, we used to go to the Pomeranian pop-ups. And so I don't know what other big cities do this. Like, I mean, we don't do it in Jacksonville, Florida, but New York will do a pop-up for like every breed. So you might meet in Central Park, Madison Square Park. You might meet over like Washington Square Park, any of those parks. And you're just meeting all of the other similar dogs, even just some like, different types of dogs that you didn't even know there'd be so many of them to do like a little meetup. So that's actually really fun. That's one thing I miss about New York for sure.
Yeah. So the breed meetups are great. I have a couple. So this Boston Terrier one, actually 3 of the members, the organizer of the meetup and the Instagram account, and then 2 of the members are past clients of mine. So I kind of knew, and they asked me, hey, would you be willing to come to this? I'm like, absolutely. I get exposure to 100 dog parents. Absolutely. Right. And then it's funny though, because it's so funny when you go to different breed meetups and how the personalities of the breed shines through, because that is hysterical. The Boston Terriers are all like jumping on my legs and obsessed with the ball squeaker that I have and all of this stuff. And then I have a Chow Chow meetup that I go to a couple of times a year. I can pet like 2 of them, and most of them are just aloof and don't care about me. And it's like the funniest things to see, like the difference between a golden retriever meetup and a Jindo meetup. And it's like, oh, this is totally different worlds. And it's so fun. It's so funny. And it's, I get to spend my Sunday with, getting loved up on by dogs. I mean, that's a bonus.
Yeah, you really can't beat that. So this kind of segues into this next question that I have. Well, there's 2 parts. One is, what's the best part of your job? And there's probably multiple answers there. But then the next question after that is, what is the most challenging? So you can choose if you want to start with the challenges or the best part, but I'm curious to hear your answers on those.
Oh my gosh, I'm probably going to ADD rattle on about both of these things. Best part about my job. For the most part, otherwise when I'm out shooting, I get to work at home with my dogs. I never have to go to an office. I get to give them the time. I have 2 rescue pups, Rocco and Nala, that are both pitty mixes, and so pitties are close to my heart. But I get to work from home for the most part, and I get to be around dogs and dog people. And dog people are a special breed themselves. Most of my clients, have rescue pups, and they're very passionate about their dogs. They're passionate about the mission from the rescues that they come from. That's very close to my heart. So I feel like I am just working with my people, which is
Mm-hmm.
really refreshing when you find a connection to a community where you all share the same values. I feel like that's amazing. And then getting to photograph dogs. And one of the best parts of that is, well, getting to love up on dogs, but also when you're able to capture like the dog's actual personality in a way that the dog parents, the owners are like, oh my God, that's my dog. I thank you. That's
Mm-hmm.
exactly what I do every day. That's what I wanted to get out of this. And then creating like art from people's session with them and their dog. A very important part of what I want to do is photograph humans with their dog and to celebrate that connection. Because it's, how they say, like, if you don't have kids, you'll never understand what it is to be a parent and how much love and whatever. And I feel like it's
Mm-hmm.
very similar if you have chosen to have dogs,
Yeah.
and that people don't understand the connection if you don't have a dog. And the fact that we don't have them long enough, like, going into it, like, you're looking at this new dog that you've adopted or you've gotten in your life, and you're like, oh, I love you so much, and I know you're going to break my heart. Like, I just,
Yeah.
like, you don't have them long enough. And I want to celebrate the life that you had with your dog in this moment where you are now,
Mm-hmm.
So in 10, 15 years, when you look back, you can be like, that was the life that I was living in New York with that dog. And he was everything to me. And he saved my life as much as I saved him. That connection is a big part of what I want to do. So I do also work with a lot of maybe dogs who have a terminal diagnosis or older dogs and
Mm-hmm.
things like that. I always offer a free session and a free print for anybody who is about to lose their pup because it's so important to me. So those are all the best things about what I do. The most challenging are that I work with a lot of rescues, and that can be hard when you see a dog. Like I do a project called Hard to Home, where it's dogs here in the city who have been in foster for quite a long time, and because of age, breed, health issues, the rescue is having a little bit harder time finding that dog its forever home. So I
Mm-hmm.
go and I photograph an actual session of this dog who's a rescue dog, feature them on my Instagram just to kind of get more eyes on this dog and talk about their personality. And it's hard to see them just like they're not in a shelter, they're in a foster home, so they're getting love
Right.
and they're whatever, but it's still like, I don't know why somebody doesn't want to love you and keep you forever
Uh-huh.
because you're perfect. So that's tough to, but I also find joy in that by helping to find that dog a home. And then just dealing with some of the trauma-based anxiety issues, etc., with some of the rescues that I have. Um, one of the rescues in particular is called Korean Canine, and they bring dogs over and save them from the Korean meat trade, the dog meat trade, which is terrible.
Okay. Yeah.
But they bring them here. A lot of those dogs have sadly been raised as livestock, and they
Mm-hmm.
don't have a lot of human interaction. So they're also kind of those breeds that generally are more cat-like than dog-like. They're little Korean village dogs, Jindus, Shibas, etc. So they're not necessarily naturally prone to a connection to people. So that is difficult, mostly in not being able to approach that dog or love up on that dog or pet that dog because
Mm-hmm.
they're very scared. So I have to keep my distance. I have to know what kind of dog I'm dealing with, and get their attention without frightening them. And so there's a little dance that you have to do with working with that. But it's also really great to be able to see that dog then, like maybe a year later, when they're coming to an event and that dog has blossomed and opened up and connected to his people. So that's fun. But yeah, those are the ups and downs.
So what's really interesting, so I've been doing this podcast a year, and dog people are so giving. So you could easily not do any rescue work. You could not help these dogs, but you choose to because you have such a good heart and you're doing what you love, and it allows you to like give back and to show more compassion and to show more love. So that's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I do find that especially with the clientele that I'm working with most of them are rescues. They're so passionate about that. They're so giving back to we do a lot of fundraising, and that's really successful for the rescues. And it is close to my heart. It is also, if I'm being brutally honest, there is a part of it that is selfishly motivated as well. Like, I come from, when I was creative director, I was also like on the marketing team. And if you're going to run a business and build business, it's about connecting with your client, finding your client. What do you share a passion about? So I am here to give back to rescue. I have my 2 rescue dogs. It's very important to me. But at the same time, it's also connecting to who I know my client is going to be and who's going to help grow my business. And it's a win-win for all involved. But there is that little, that thing in the back too, like anytime you give to a charity, you don't necessarily do it because of what you're going to get back. But if you're a business that is doing things for charity, you are going to get back tenfold of what you put in. So I do find that it's just a great way to find my people.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell everyone where they can find you, drop your website, and then also social media.
Yeah, so social media, the Instagram is where I'm most active, and it's kind of where I've built the business, and that is at The Ways of the Dog. And the website is the same thing. It's just thewaysofthedog.com, and that's where you can find all of the information about products and pricing and sessions and all the things that I do. But the stories and the dogs, the photos, the stories, the information about who the dog is, and if you just want to follow cute dogs, that's on the Instagram account.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Jen. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for tuning in to the Canine Culture Podcast. Please make sure you subscribe to the Canine Culture Podcast on your favorite podcast platform, and make sure you're following us on social media. If you have any recommendations, any topics that you'd like to hear, if you know of any guests that would be good for the show, or if you yourself want to be a guest, please reach out to us. Send us an email at canineculturepodcast@gmail.com, or send us a direct message on social media. Thank you for listening, and please share this with any of your dog-loving friends.